Welcome to the Real Board Loft. I'm Trip Foreman. This is the Rusty SD shortboard, and no, I did not paint it myself. This board is actually Clint Priestendorfer's own personal board that he loaned to me for a trip to Mexico that we just got back from, and we're here to talk to you about how this board performs. The SD, which stands for San Diego, it's their San Diego shortboard. It's a board that's meant to be ridden in a really wide range of conditions, and it's also East Coast friendly just because of the range that the board covers, and that you can shortboard gravel on it, and it will carry you up into barreling conditions. So taking a look at this board, typical of a rangy all-around shortboard with small wave potential is it does have a little bit wider nose area, and it has a flatter entry rocker as well in the nose. Not super wide in the nose, nowhere near a hybrid, but just a little bit more than a full-out, super high-performance shortboard. The tail on this board is, I think, where you'll see the difference compared to a better wave shortboard. Is it's got a little bit wider tail block back here, so the width of the exit of the board on this, the width of the tail on this board where it exits is wider than a better wave shortboard as well. And so what that's going to do is just give you more lift underneath your feet. So in softer conditions or in sectioning conditions, when you push in the turns, like having a wider tail block, when you push on it, it's going to push back up and rebound out of the turns better. This board is literally, it feels like an extension of yourself, and also of like where you want to be on the waves. Like it gets into waves super easy, even having reduced area compared to, let's say, like the Rusty Dwart 2 in the nose. It still paddles super easy. It's almost like the narrower nose compared to a wider hybrid goes through the water and gets into the wave easier. And definitely on late drops or more hollow waves, it doesn't hook up and trip you on the later drops as well. The board accelerates really good in the turns. Having that wider tail to push on in the SD as well gives you a lot more ability to generate speed. I was in the water one time with Matt Keenan, one of the Rusty team riders, and he had his own SD, and it was literally so small that I couldn't even surf even a hybrid or a gravel board. I was riding my Robert August 9.6 longboard, and he was on one of these things in like 1 to maybe 2 foot sets, and he was just absolutely annihilating it on this board, and it was cool to watch, super inspiring as far as upping your shortboard game. But it made me really want to check one out. I took one to Mexico, and this is the one that I rode. And having a shortboard that is not hard to surf is a really fun part of your quiver, because it really allows you to still keep your wave count high, but really work on your turns and making every part of your turn, harder and more radical and more vertical. This board here is in Rusty's torsion spring construction, which is new, and a lot of you haven't seen this construction personally. It has its own proprietary blank, which is a waterproof blank that Rusty developed, which means that if you ever ding your board, you don't need to run out of the water. It's not going to absorb water like a standard EPS core would. That foam is coupled with Kevlar carbon wrap on the rails, which do two things. One, it reinforces the board quite a bit because the board is stringerless. So it keeps the board from buckling or breaking, or at least prevents it. It's not going to stop it from buckling or breaking, but it makes it definitely stronger against that. But it also creates a spring that allows you to really launch out of your turns. And so the best way to describe this board in the turns, like the very first wave that I got on it in Mexico, I came off the bottom of the wave and released the turn, and it was literally like I was releasing a pogo stick. The board loads up and then springs out of the turns, just like they say, like when they're describing it in their catalog or on their website. It's a big, I think, improvement as far as the performance of the board, so definitely something to check out. It's made with epoxy resin, and typically people are like, oh, epoxy resin, oh, it's going to be chattery. The blank that Rusty developed it's a higher density, weightier blank, and then they also, when they're vacuum bagging this board, it has more layers of cloth on the board and heavier weight cloth on the board, but because of the vacuum bagging, it pulls all the additional resin out of the board that's unneeded. So you actually end up with a board that's a little bit lighter than a standard PU poly, significantly stronger on the deck against like denting and caving in, and then also against breaking. But you don't have that light, chattery feeling. You know, it's not like uber light. It's just a little bit lighter than a poly and just as damp as a poly. So if you beat up your boards and you always see that the deck of your board is falling apart, this is definitely a board or a construction to check out. And it's also the waterproof characteristic of that foam is makes it great, you know, as a travel board. If you're going to be away from your ding repair guy and you don't want to have to stop your once-a-year vacation because you got a small ding in your board, this is a great construction to have. And they offer it in a bunch of different models. It's the torsion spring construction. So the board right here that we have, it's the Rusty SD shortboard. If you have any other questions about it, you can give us a call at the shop, 252-987-6000, or you can look us up online, realwatersports.com/surfing. Thanks for tuning in.